Hi folks, how you doing? Hope you're keeping well. Here in the UK we're entering, I think it's the 9th week of lockdown now. We had an announcement from the government last night that they're making some slight changes. People are now allowed to go out and exercise as many times as they want during the day, and people are also allowed to travel to exercise as well. So we can't get our classes up and running again at the moment, but if anyone did want to travel to exercise here at the house, then get in touch and I'm sure we can sort something out. So as I said last time, I had some questions in, and do keep those questions coming in as well please. And there was a question about motivation. How do I motivate myself to keep training, solo training specifically? Well, it's kind of a difficult one to answer in some ways because motivation is a very personal issue. My own motivations now, to be honest, are pretty much the same as when I first started seriously training in martial arts when I was 17, I think. Obviously the way I change and how I approach my training has changed dramatically thanks to Systema, but my core motivations are pretty much the same. I would only add a sort of bigger motivation now is just trying to keep mobile. As you get a bit older and you get into your 50s especially, you really want to work to keep that mobility and internal relaxation going. So that's probably a fundamental motivation for me now. But all those other ones are still there. So we can think of these motivations, we can sort of group them into 3 categories. The first one is skill acquisition. Now this doesn't just apply to Systema or martial arts, it can apply to anything. It can apply to learning a language, it can apply to learning a musical instrument. If you learn Spanish guitar, I guess you can learn both at the same time. But a prime motivation is normally people want to acquire a particular skill. So for Systema that might be a feeling of self-defense, you want to learn how to protect yourselves and your family, or of course it could be for professional reasons. The second area is the benefits that the practice gives you. So it could be that by practicing it's making you fit, it's making you more healthy, you're working your brain, you're expanding your horizons. And the third area is what I call the intangibles. So it could be that there's a strong social element to your training. Obviously at the moment that's a little more difficult. It could be that there are psychological benefits, and you can also get into cultural areas and spiritual aspects as well. So those are the 3 main broad areas of motivation. So what I suggest you do initially, in particular with solo training, is just take a look at those 3 areas and maybe pick 1 or 2 things out of those. That will give you a rough idea or a rough map for where you want to go with your training. Now those areas, of course, they overlap, they're not mutually exclusive, and sometimes one can override another because there are negatives and positives in each of those areas as well. So let's take, for example, there's one particular art where people pick up a lot of injuries, but it is very well organised on a social level, on a grading level, on a syllabus level, so people perhaps are prepared to overlook the fact that they get injured because they're getting these other benefits, they've got these other motivations for going as well. So when it comes specifically to solo training, how do we motivate ourselves? And again, it's largely a personal issue because we're all at different stages of training, we're all at different stages of life, and we're all living in different circumstances. I would say one thing to do, especially at first if you're fairly new, is to try and give yourself a structure to work to. Now, I'll often say one of the great things about Systema is it's incredibly wide and it's incredibly deep, and one of the frustrating things about Systema is it's incredibly wide and it's incredibly deep. And on the face of it, all we're doing is working on these 4 pillars, right? The breathing, posture, tension, movement. So that sounds very simple, but it also sounds quite vague. If you go to learn a lot of other martial arts, of course there's a set syllabus. You start from A to B to C, from basic to middle to advanced and so on. We tend to throw it all in and kind of sort it out as it goes along. So when it comes to putting in the structure for yourself, think about the things you need to work on. Now, you can divide training broadly into external and internal if you want to compartmentalise things. So for external, we're thinking about strength training, we're thinking about core strength, we're thinking about our outside posture, we're thinking about mobility, flexibility, freedom of movement. With internal, we're thinking more about breathing, we're thinking more about our emotional and psychological state, and we're also thinking of the more subtle aspects of those external factors. So yes, we're still talking about posture, tension, relaxation, but we're working a little deeper inside the body. A bit like we peel away the layers of an onion. You work into one layer, then you find there's another layer underneath. You can always work deeper. So you might pick one thing to work on, one topic. You might say mobility. So Monday I'm going to work on mobility. M for Monday, M for mobility. So I'm mostly going to work through joint rotations, I'm going to do some stretching, I'm going to do some movement on the ground. Tuesday you might think I want to work a little bit more on my strength, so I'm going to work my core exercises, my push-ups, squats, etc. I might want to work with maybe some kettlebells or sledgehammer or whatever else it is. So in this way you start working a structure for yourself, but of course whatever you're working on, we're always working on those 4 pillars, right? So the best types of exercise, the one that you get the most benefit from, are ones that combine all those elements together. So say we want to do just a press up, for example. We can bang out 20, 30, 40 reps of a press up in an external way. And that's okay, it's a bit of cardio work, it gets the heart rate up, we're working the muscles. But instead, if you do those same press ups but slow on an inhale and an exhale, now you start finding out more about where there's tension in the body and how you can actually use the structure rather than the tension to support your position. If you add in breath holds, so you hold the breath, inhale and do 4 push-ups, now you're working on internal strength and also your psychological state as well, because at some point of course psychological fear and tension are going to kick into that. So what I'm saying is, even with these basic exercises, and these are the exercises that we all still do after however many years of training, we're all still doing those same exercises, but we can be working at different layers and different levels. So that's one approach. You can split your training up into these different categories, and you can say Monday mobility, Tuesday core strength, Wednesday breathing and breath holds, and so on. Or you can take an approach where you're going to kind of mix things in a little bit. And generally how I train these days is, I used to, when I was doing Chinese arts, 2 or 3 hours a day was not unusual, running through all the forms, running through the supplementary exercises. What I find now is more beneficial to do sort of 10-15 minute blocks throughout the day. So I might do 15 minutes press-ups, sit-ups, leg raises, etc. I might, when I'm out walking or running or cycling now, I've been doing a bit more cycling lately, then I'm practicing the breathing, I'm practicing my breath holds. Other times I'll go out, I've got a bit of time, I'll go out onto the decking at the back and I'll just do some rolling, moving around on the floor, that kind of stuff. Working with the stick, working with the hammer. So once you've got a grasp on these exercises, I find it's much more natural really to give yourself 15-minute blocks here and there. Because this also ties back in with this idea of what we do is not exercise, it's activity. I've never been one for exercise, and I do find what I call the numbers approach to exercise doesn't really work so well for me. especially I've never been one of those who's going to write it up on a clipboard. Today I did 50 of this and 30 of that. You know, if that works for you, that's fine. I mean, maybe one good way at first to do this is say, right, well, if I do 10 press-ups here, then next time I've got to do 12 press-ups. So there's a layer of motivation for you. You're working against yourself, but don't get too hung up on the numbers. It's always more about quality rather than quantity. Another motivation might be, think, what's a new skill? Have you done much work with the stick, for example? If you haven't, well, perhaps that's something you could get into and try. There's loads of resources available now from Vladimir's site, from my site, even just on YouTube. There's loads of resources for learning all these things. So get yourself a stick, find all the different things you can do with it. You can be building strength, mobility, sensitivity, all sorts of stuff, even on your own with the stick. I think overall, the most important thing is your mindset. I think, as I said last time, I've noticed a bit of a trend perhaps where people are starting to switch off. They're becoming, well, not even reactive, they're becoming very passive, and they just sit and they consume whatever is coming to them from the screen, from the phone, from the computer. Well, that's okay to an extent, but as I said before, you need to take that knowledge and use it. Become active with it. Giving something a thumbs up on Facebook is not the same as doing it. And this is the bane of any creative people, particularly, I mean, musicians are having a hard time at the moment. But it used to be like, yeah, we've got a gig at wherever it is on Saturday night, and 150 people go, and 20 of them turn up. So, you know, it's all nice to get the thumbs up on Facebook, but do it. Do the thing. Be active. And then even better than that, be proactive. Put your own ideas out. Be talking to other people. Be communicating. Again, whether it's Systema or anything else. But we want to keep this exchange of information and ideas and creativity going, and not just be passive receptors to whatever is fed to us, which might be good or, you know, might not be so good. So I hope that gives you some ideas. So just to recap quickly, study your motivations, think about those 3 areas, and once you've got an idea on those, you know what you came into this for, then you can gear your training towards that. If you came in to be really super fit and mobile, then your training will reflect that. Then take those ideas of the exercises. You can work a schedule, a timetable, Monday this, Tuesday that, Wednesday that. You can set yourself just 10-15 minutes aside at intervals throughout the day just to do whatever you feel like your body needs doing. Or you can use the time to acquire new skills. Can you do a pistol squat, for example? Well, here's a great opportunity to learn how to do one. Again, there's loads of resources available online or on download. So maybe that's something you could try. There's lots of other examples as well. And above all, keep a good, healthy, positive mental outlook. Be active, be creative, be proactive. So I hope that does give you some ideas. Please do give me feedback on this. I'm interested to hear how people are doing. And of course, it's good to share your own ideas or routines with the rest of the community as well. Fingers crossed, we'll be back together training pretty soon. And until then, take care.